A very good evening to everyone watching. Thank you for joining us tonight on the evening review. My name is Toivan Jebela. Tonight on the show, I'm joined by my colleague Mathias Haufiku. He's news editor of Namibian Sun, and we just want to pick a few topical issues that have been doing rounds in the media lately. Thank you, Mathias, for coming on. I think the talk of town now, especially in our circles as media practitioners, is this issue, this impression that there's crashing of political dissent, and that the media will be next. That is how you control society. Is it something that that you have reflected on, and is it people just imagining things?
Yeah, I think firstly, thanks for having me, and good evening to all our viewers. I think there's a lot of ways to look at it. Of course, it depends which optics you choose, especially from a political point of view, which side of the political divide you are also. If you are part of the governing party, I'm sure you'd be saying this is the way that things should be. If you are on the opposition benches, or perhaps also civil society and so on, you'd feel that some of the rights are being trampled upon to a certain extent. But this push and pull would always be there. I mean, there's always been there. I don't think it's a new thing. It has always been there. It's more of how extreme has it been over the years. Yeah, and you'd see that, I think, with the advent of social media and everything, it would seem as if it's now more than ever more extreme. You've had the PDM MP recently bringing up the issue of regulating social media, bringing that up in Parliament. This comes from opposition MP, mind you, not from the ruling party. Ordinarily, you would expect it to come from that side of the house, but it's not. So it shows how we've, I would say, matured as a democracy. Of course, not everyone will always be happy with everything that's tabled, whether in Parliament or in any other government spaces. So it's really just the angle at which you're looking at it from. Yeah.
So I think the suspension of the managing editor of New Era is the one that people, I mean, we saw an article by Michael Amshelelo in Namibian Sun last week. He was citing his own situation where he was incarceration for 7 months, and then he says, I mean, there's a columnist also in our newspaper that spoke about the Jonathan Bierke's situation, to say that that is sort of the beginning of also now coming at the media now. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. These type of incidents have been there in the past, but in a different manner. Remember when the initial draft bill of the Access to Information Law came out, I think there was a clause that where they wanted to prohibit the media from reporting on any cabinet deliberation. You have to wait for it to be finished, and once it's announced, then you can report on it. So those things have always been there. But I think our society, to a certain extent, they remain steadfast on what they think, on how they think things ought to be handled. This one would be no different. We don't have the nitty-gritties, the finer details of the suspension at New Era, but what we are hearing, again, is the ministry distancing itself. So it's in essence the media that's eating itself. If the ministry or government really had nothing to do with this, then we should reflect as an industry, that why is it one of our own is going after one of our own? We are basically in the same pot.
Now, related to that, I mean, and again, it's not really about the New Era incident, but a lot of debate has emanated from that, and that is around the independence of the judiciary, transparency, mostly, not very much the independence of the judiciary, but its transparency. Because we are told that one of the things that made the big people at New Era unhappy was this constant scrutiny of the judiciary. We ended up seeing last week on Twitter, lawyer Kadila Momo also sort of saying, yeah, but the judiciary is sort of our sacred space, as if to say that they are holy and therefore whatever they do is right and holy, and that we cannot question it. I mean, since when are we not allowed to question the decisions and the administration of justice in our country?
Yeah. Let me address it this way. I think when President Hage Geingob started in 2015, one of the things he did well, in my view, was the issue of accountability and transparency. But there was a sort of a shortcoming. He sort of went at it on his own and left the rest of the system behind. And that's why we still have these issues. Not so long ago, we've also had the issue of the security cluster, where they felt, even during the budget debates, that they shouldn't be accountable. You can't ask the defense how they spend their money because of this so-called national security, but there needs to be a level of accountability and transparency. And the same should go for the judiciary. They are answerable to the public, after all. Of course, we don't expect everything to be public. There are certain administrative factors that should be kept behind closed doors. But to say there's a blanket sort of approach to how they account, that I don't think that that's a situation that we should accept in this country.
Yeah. The other issue is I think what New Era at the time was trying to scrutinize was the appointment of judges. That somehow that process is not very public. Elsewhere, even in South Africa, judges appear before an interview panel. They get it's live. Everybody can watch. The Malemas and others really interrogating those judges. Even Zondo, in his case, before he became the Chief Justice, there was that process. But here, you just hear that the Judicial Service Commission has sent its recommendations to the President, and the President has approved. I mean, I can't remember any incident where he sort of shot down that recommendation. Is that enough, or do we want to move into a system like we saw with the appointment of the Ombudsman the other year, that there was really an open process and everybody could see?
Yeah, I mean, the city of Windhoek, although that process was sort of protracted, but that's what you want for the public also to buy into it. It also just helps to protect your integrity as an office, because I mean, if you afford the public that courtesy to say, this is our process, it's open, you can come sit in as the public, you can view online how, whether it's not the Judicial Service Commission, how they are basically interviewing these candidates. It also builds confidence and trust in institutions. I don't see any need why our institutions should still do things the way they used to do it in the past. They might feel that for them it's the right way to go, but you need to gauge where the society is in the modern day. That's part of the reason why you'll find members of the public who would say that, well, they are not interested in the workings of institution A, B, or C. It's because of these things. Because we don't take people in confidence. Initially, that's really what we want, for our system to really function at a wholesale level. So otherwise, we will be having these conflicts every day, whereby people get suspended because they questioned institution A, B, and C, or whereby there are really genuine reasons why an institution wants to take a certain route. But just because they've not taken the public in confidence, people will always be skeptical.
But as someone who has reported for so many years on the workings of government institutions, the three arms of government, you were dragged famously, or rather infamously, to court by the Namibian intelligence service some years ago. Thank God you won. But, I mean, can we use the same template that you used at the time, at the Patriot, to say that even for the judiciary, where we see the need to scrutinize and demand answers, that must continue? Or are we heading in a direction where we are saying, oh no, but those guys, you know, we are attacking a very important institution of our country, and therefore we must rather back off?
Yeah. We can't have a situation where one institution is more important than the other, or one should be held to higher standards of accountability than the other. I think we should all have those institutions on the same pedestal. As far as transparency and accountability is concerned, we shouldn't play with it at all, because the judiciary affects every other working of government. So to leave them to their own vices, I don't think it would bode well for our democracy going forward. Like I mentioned earlier on, there are certain processes, of course, which are kept under wraps, and we are appreciative of that. There was a time where the judiciary wanted certain cases to be heard in camera on the discretion of, I think, the judge president at the time.
Yes.
Imagine if no one had spoken out at the time, what would have happened? Because if you allow these things, it would just continue morphing itself into the system. So everyone, if I'm at entity B and I see that, okay, Toivo is the head of judiciary, he managed to keep the public, to keep this information away from the public, maybe I should also do the same. So everyone will start doing the same. Later on, the whole entire system will be a closed-off system, and you don't want it. Yeah.
Absolutely. We go for a quick break and then return with Mathias Haufiku.
Win a double trolley dash in our birthday bonanza while saving on these. Get 10 kg Champion Super Maize for $99.99. 3 kg Pasta Grande Elbows or Mac for $64.99. 1.5 kg Real Good Mixed Chicken for just $64.99. 1 liter First Choice UHT Milk for $19.99. And 2 kg Surf Hand Washing Powder for $49.99. See the details of our incredible double trolley dash competition at vurmanbrock.com.
The show continues. Now, Mathias, the situation, again, and it's not the subject here really, but the incident at New Era now, should it be seen in isolation? You know, it's a once-off thing, it can happen once in a while in the industry, or should it send chills down the spine of all of us, especially when, because it's okay if it's a strictly labor issue. You don't come to work on time, or you don't do your work properly. It's a different conversation. But when you are suspended over the journalism work that you've done, how should we view that?
In the end, it would boil down to the real reason why it happened.
Yeah.
That would give us a sense of whether we should be fearful going forward. At this stage, I'd like to believe it will be an isolated incident, because you'll see a lot of pushback going on, and you don't want that, especially considering where our media landscape is. I think we've matured a lot the past 33 years, and for us to break that down ourselves, it would be a travesty, as we don't have anyone else to blame there. So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would be important if this matter should be concluded, it should be concluded with the details being placed publicly as to this is what happened, this was the probe that was carried out, and these were the findings.
Yeah.
And only then can we chart a proper way forward on this matter.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I mean, I'm asking really just because that is really the impression. I mean, we are scared of a president being set, and if it carries on again, and you are right, we do not know the details of that case. We don't know, maybe the CEO was justified or not, we do not know, but I think further details as they emerge should be able to give us a clear impression. Let's talk about the media in general. People saying this self-regulation thing is not really working. The media is left with too much power. Do you think that locally, the way we do things right now, because you always hear, suggestions, sometimes very mildly, people trying to say that, we must be regulated. And this is what we fought against. Remember, there was an attempt initially for there to be some sort of regulatory authority over the media. And the media at the time really fought back and said, no, we would rather appoint, because there was this question of who watches the watchdog, if we are the watchdog, and who watches us. And then we came up with the Ombudsman's Office, which has, met out some judgments against the industry. But is that the way to go to keep it the way it is? I mean, we also have now the access to information law coming in, kicking in now. Do you expect it to sort of just make things better, or are we heading in a situation where we are going to see restrictions?
Yeah. ATI, in my view, would just come and supplement what we already have in place. I think the self-regulatory instruments have worked quite well. Of course, there'll always be concerns over that because of the nature of the industry and how our work affects members of the public. If a journalist writes an expose and gets you fired if you are CEO at the bank, of course you would not be happy with the press. You'd always have reservations and always want to pick on the press. But I think as members of the public, I believe we have enough instruments in our system to protect both the public and the media. And we also have the courts. You don't necessarily have to go to the media ombudsman if you're not happy. You can go directly to the courts. So there's enough recourse measures available. ATI, we'll see how it plays out, but hopefully it acts as a supplement to what we currently have and doesn't take us steps back.
Yeah. I want to go a bit far now, away from Namibia, the situation in Gaza and Israel. And I've been monitoring the way the Western media in particular has covered this issue. And there's just this consensus really that the media, mainstream media in the West seem to be very, I was reading an article that says, are they biased or unprofessional? Because they are just really very, very biased for me, subjective in the way this thing is covered. What has been your impression of how this conflict is being covered in the media?
Sometimes as the media, we're also our own worst enemies because we sort of entrench perceptions that are already existing. Because if you look at the reporting on this Israel-Palestine matter, and it's not only now, it has been coming all over the years. Palestine, Israel sort of enjoys this favorable treatment from the big media entities globally. So that entrenches that perception to say, can the media ever be objective or independent? We are here preaching independence and objectivity and fighting for that. But our colleagues on the other side of the world, clearly they have different ways of doing things, or their viewpoint is different. So it should be a concern for all of us. We should draw lessons when we apply that to our own scenario here locally, whenever we are dealing with disseminating news, not to make the same mistakes that we see them making.
Yeah, because I mean, look, I mean, we were always taught that we must be this, that. I mean, there are just values that were always ingrained in us. Be objective, be fair, be truthful, all these things. And I'm not saying that Namibian media has always been that, but I think to a very large extent we try to be that. Nobody here really twists facts on purpose. If there are wrong facts in the article the next day, it's probably because the journalist and the editor were misled by their sources, or they did a poor job in really verifying their facts. But I don't really see consistent cases of people deliberately twisting information to fit a particular narrative. So I always think that the Namibian press in that respect is actually way ahead of others, because you can't have a situation where, okay, fine, Hamas attacked Israel on the 7th of October, 1,400 people died, and now nearly 9,000 people in Gaza have been killed, and nobody's talking about these killings. The only killings that are being talked about is the initial ones. And nobody's saying, okay, let's condemn also Israel. BBC, which I read sometimes, their website, they're saying, yeah, how much progress is Israel making on their ground operations now in Gaza? Really? How much progress? You want there to be progress? Progress in that case means killing more people. Is that what the media wants? So I just find it a bit really unbelievable what I'm seeing. But the lessons that you spoke about, you know, do you think, for example, therefore, that one of the lessons is how not to cover news, not only how to cover news, but how not to do it?
Most definitely, most definitely. And we should steer clear from agenda journalism. This shouldn't be our space. For us, we put the facts out there, and everyone decides for themselves what they want to believe. It's not our responsibility to convince people what is right and what's wrong. So let them do that themselves. So there's a lot that we can learn from them, good and bad. So we have to keep our eyes open. To keep our eyes open.
In conclusion, Mathias, the media, again, the fourth estate, are we carrying that tag appropriately? Are we the fourth estate, or gone are the days when we were that?
No, we're definitely still carrying that tag, that baton. The nice thing about the media industry is that your work is out there. Everyone sees it, and that's why it's so easy to criticize the press, because our work is out there. Not like an accountant who sits behind a computer, and if they make a mistake, it's just confined to that office. So ours is out there, and that's why there's constant input and criticism, which is good for the industry. Because where we get it wrong, we need to be called out and improve our processes, not to repeat those mistakes. So I believe we continue to be a choice of a source of information for many people, whether it's individuals, whether it's business, whether it's government. Never mind the criticism. That is I think that's part of the game. Definitely.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Mathias, for coming through. I think for me, really, is again just because we as journalists must also be amenable to, we must be receptive of criticism. A lot of it is unfair. People getting really getting emotional because things that are reported, even if they are true, are somehow against their interest, and therefore they come at you. So I don't mind. I mean, I get dragged into the mud every day, even if I'm on leave and you are on duty that day. Nobody knows that Tewo is on leave. He was not involved in this particular edition, but I take it. But others, if you do that, you know, they interpret it to be attack on the press. It's not attack, really. Of course, if it goes too far, then it's attack. But if people say, you know, what you guys have written is nonsense or whatever, nah, I don't think that it's attack on the media. But thanks for coming through.
No, thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's tonight's show with my colleague Mathias Haufiku. He's a news editor here at Namibian Sun. Thank you for watching.